It's with really great pleasure that I'd like to present to you Eleni Mcloughlin. I would like to thank her a lot for being here with us. We really appreciate it. Her work in Cyprus in relation to Cypriot botanical illustration is truly unique. So you're all very lucky, in fact, that she agreed to come and be here with us. Just to tell you a few words about her biography before she starts. Eleni was born in the neighborhood of Agios Loukas in the old city of Lefkosia. She went to Pan-Cypriot Gymnasium and she studied under artist Telemachos Kanthos, landscape painter. I'm just going to talk a little bit about her artistic work. She originally painted Cypriot landscapes in oil and sold them at galleries in Nicosia. And she then went to study botanical illustration at the University of Birmingham and then the University of Sheffield. And she's still involved with both universities doing work and teaching workshops. She's a founding member of the Birmingham Society for Botanical Artists and the Florilegium Society at Sheffield Botanical Gardens. She has illustrated many plants and also acts as the archivist for a Society of Botanical Illustration. She mostly specializes in pen, ink, colored pencil, and multimedia techniques and teaches several sessions at the Centre of England Arts on courses arranged by the Botanical Artists Society. She also has told me recently that she does abstract work as well. So I thought it's important to mention because what you will be seeing today is her botanical illustration, but she's an artist who moves across different painterly techniques. Thank you so much, both you and Mike, her husband, who they're here today with us. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everybody. I'm glad you have come here. I don't know how many of you have ever liked or seen or understand any botanical illustrations. How many of you have ever had anything to do with botanical illustrations? Wow. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes. As Evie said, I started with just landscapes, really. I've always painted. I painted since I was a child. I always went around with a pencil in my pocket and an eraser and some paper in case I felt I was bored. I'm never bored. I draw everywhere I go, on aeroplanes and everywhere. In fact, I have a sketchbook that is entirely done on aeroplanes. So there is never any dull moment. So I'm never bothered when an airline says, well, the flight has been delayed or anything like that. I say, oh, well, good, I can finish this page. So that's it. So, yes, we are all very strange people. Today, thank you very much for inviting me here. So it's my great pleasure to talk about it. I will start with the very brief, indeed, a few minutes brief history of illustration, simply because I would like to go straight into Nicosia, into Cyprus, because that is what the day is all about. And so the history I'm going to give you is only very brief. I am not a historian, so please, if I say wrong dates, forget that. And I will go straight into art. Can you see on that side? Can you? Oh, okay, yes. So really, this is Flora Nicosiensis, and it is an introduction to botanical art illustration by me. There is botanical art and botanical illustration. There is a difference. I brought a few paintings there, a few illustrations there. Some of them are botanical art and some of them are botanical illustration. So it doesn't mean that the botanical art is wrong, because even in that, everything has to be correct. Everything has to be correct in the illustration too, because a mistake, it means that the painting is void. I might as well throw it out. So we start from there. And the program is, of course, is the historical development. And then I'm going to show you early personal work, presentation. This is very daring of me because it is when I was a student. When I look at them now, I feel like throwing them out, but I didn't throw them out. And I think it's good even for me to see them and remember. So here we start. Not moving. It is, that's right, yes. About 2,000 years before Christ, they found some paintings that we can call botanical work from Karnak and from the tombs in Karnak. Here is the pillars. My husband took this because we visited Karnak. That's right, yes. Has anybody been to Karnak in Egypt? No, never mind. These are pillars, and you can see some illustrations on there. And this one here is a copy of a tomb painting of papyrus. Somebody went in, obviously a painter, and copied this painting, and the colors are absolutely correct. It's beautiful, and you can actually see what the plant is. There's no doubt about it, what it is. And then, of course, yes, papyrus plant, you know what it was used for? To start with, it was to make a parchment, the paper that they could write on, and that's how it was. So the plants of papyrus and plants of the lotus were very important to Egypt. The lotus plant was they revered. The lotus plant was for the south of Egypt, and the north. The lotus plant was for the South Egypt. That's right, the next line, yes. Yeah. These are statues outside Karnak, and you can actually see there where the arrow is there is this here, what it is here, this picture. And here you can see papyrus, and you can see the lotus, and when you see the two plants together, one together like that, that was for, it was very significant, and that was for unification of the two lands in Egypt. It was very good because you can find this in many of their postcards you buy and in their tombs. So this is very good. This must have been extremely difficult to make this piece of work, because of the tools that they had were not really that sharp and good and strong enough to do it. But if you look at the illustrations, are extremely good. Now all this is about 2,000 years before Christ. This is absolutely beautiful. Now we're going to leave Egypt, and we're going to go to talk about the Dioscorides between 50 and 70 years AD. Dioscorides was Greek, and he lived in Italy, and he was a medical person. He was a doctor, and I'm going back to that, that's right, yes. He wrote a 5-volume book in Greek language, and it was Perielis Iatrikis, which is Greek, but really we know it today as De Materia Medica, and that's what it means. 5 volumes where he wrote about the plants, about the uses of the plants, whether the plant was for what medicinal purposes, and he arranged the plants in a way that he wanted, because that's how the plants were arranged in his books. Now, The books that he had written were used for at least 1500 years afterwards. They were still used. Of course, he did quite a lot of, about 600 he illustrated himself. His illustrations were very good, but of course, with the years, people were copying them and recopying them. The time passed by, and they were copied so many times that at the end they were no good, they were no use to anybody. The description of the plants and also the illustrations were just no good at all. This one is of his, this plant here is very well done. I can understand what it is, even looking at it now. He illustrated the roots and the habit of the plant, because if one branch falls on the ground, it can start growing again. This is absolutely beautiful. And then, of course, people started to copy them, and it just... Now, this is mandragora. I don't know if you all heard of that plant. You probably, if you watched Harry Potter, one of the... they were using that because mandragora, the root looks like a man, but I can assure you it's not like that at all. It looks like it, but not that much. This is really over the top. It was just beautiful. But it's beautiful, I suppose, to know. So, but of course now we're going to go to the Middle Ages, and you know the Byzantine art was flourishing then, and of course Byzantine art, you can see things that they were illustrated in such a way. They used to put gold on them, they used to change them and stylize them, and they looked like absolutely nothing really. So you couldn't understand at all what the plant was all about, or what the plant was in fact. So that was really very poor, but they still look good. I think one of them is got it's written in Greek. But here you are. The Middle Ages, now we go that people started to observe and work with plants, but a lot of the monks from monasteries used to use plants for medicinal purposes. And then, of course, the observation was very good, and I can understand exactly what they are, and that really is quite nice. Again, the fascination with mandragora, I don't know. They're not out, otherwise I would have brought you a mandragora here, because we have a mandragora plant all over Cyprus, and they really don't look anything if you think about it. Of course, this is a different variety to this variety here. This is more like the real plant. The root varies, obviously, depends if a plant is growing on a stony ground or a soft ground, the root will vary. But there you are, the obsession with mandragora. And but then we go to the 17th and 20th centuries, where you can see, first of all, up here, this was at the time that 17th century, in Holland, they imported tulips and beautiful flowers from the east. I think tulips came from around Turkey, all those countries around there. And then, of course, it was a symbol of wealth. So in Holland, people would have them painted just to show that they were rich, because to buy a tulip bulb was more than twice the price of your house. So a lot of people went bankrupt when the tulip decided not to grow or to produce. They thought they could grow them from the seed, but of course what they didn't realize that the seed would take about 7 years before it even got big enough to produce a tulip. So that was the time, the tulip mania. But of course you can see how wrong it is, because the painting is beautiful. It used to be in oil, but of course they put flowers here that they don't belong together, meaning they have roses and tulips and all mixed up together, because they wanted to present it, and of course they don't all grow at the same time. These days maybe because we have the greenhouses, but in those days, no, they didn't. So the more vases you had like that, painted for your house, the wealthier you were. And then, of course, we go into further periods that, no, sorry, the wrong one. These tulips are painted beautifully, and you can see that tulip was painted on parchment or vellum. In those days, a lot of people would do these paintings on vellum. And you know what vellum is, anybody? Yes, you do. Vellum, really, it is the skin of a young goat, a young calf, a young. It had to be the animal is quite young because it was beautiful and smooth. But they did flatten it themselves and did it, and nearly everything manuscripts were written on vellum. And I have friends now that are still working on vellum. Of course, it's very, very expensive. And of course, the manufacturers can even do it, they can cut it thinner so they can make more layers with it. And of course, it does not deteriorate. I tell you, it smells because when I was studying, we had to work on vellum. And my piece of vellum is still at home. And every time I look at it, it smells and awful. So this is an absolutely beautiful painting, beautifully executed. And then, of course, we've got this now. A painting like this was painted in oil by Marian North. And Marian North was born in England to a very wealthy family. Her mother died young, and her father decided to take Marian on journeys. And, of course, the journeys in those days were for the rich. She visited North America, she visited Brazil, and she visited East as well. So really a very good, very, very prolific painter. She's not called really a botanical painter, but everything she painted, it looked exactly as it should do. And when her father died, she continued going all around the world. And painting in the jungles, I really don't know how she managed, but she did, and with oil on canvas, that takes ages. Of course, she always had letters from the government in England, so she was always welcomed in people's houses. She was given accommodation. But of course, in England, did you go to there? Yes? Of course, Marian North went back to England with many, many canvases. She designed her own gallery in the building in Kew, and of course she left a plan as well how she wanted her pictures to be shown. And up to this day, a lot of people, if you ever go to Kew Gardens, go and have a look at it. It's beautiful. All the pictures touch together because it's so much, and it's beautiful. It doesn't look vulgar at all. It's really nice. This lady here, she's from north of Holland. Her father taught her. She learned from her brother when he died, and then she went to Vienna. A lot of people ended up in Vienna. It was something that they've always appreciated artists who were interested in any sort of arts, especially botanical artists. This one, of course, for me, Rory McEwen, I had to study Rory McEwen because he was a very good painter. He did all his works, or most of his works were done on vellum as well. And absolutely wonderful. All his paintings are exact, very clear, and of course he painted in watercolor. Now we're going to jump straight into the time where visitors came into Cyprus, because it was easier to travel by then. So we have Dr. John Sibthorpe. He used to work at Kew. He was in Oxford as well. He was a professor in Oxford, interested in botany. He went to Vienna to study as well. And of course, he met Ferdinand Bauer and his brother. Ferdinand Bauer and his brother were botanical illustrators in Vienna. Of course, he persuaded Ferdinand to go with him, to travel with him to the Mediterranean, and of course to Cyprus. and he paid him £80 a year as a wage to go with him to do the paintings. But of course, there were 5 of them that visited Cyprus. Dr. John Hawkins, he was an author, and he was always, he was very good at painting too. Well, he was an amateur painter too, and he went there. Captain Emery, a serious scholar, he was interested in minerals, where he collected, and Colonel Emery, he was a geologist. All 5 of them came to Cyprus, and they collected specimens, more than 3,000 specimens. I can't imagine how many specimens anybody. They preserved them well, and of course Ferdinand and Hawkins helped him, because he didn't go for that, John Hawkins, and he did as many drawings as he could. And you know what we do, I will talk for myself as well, that the specimens we collect, you have to respect them. You have to look after them, because 3,000, obviously they would rot before you know it. Obviously they would make dried specimens out of them by putting them in newspapers to absorb the moisture. And I know from Ferdinand as well, what he used to do when he was in Vienna. He was a very meticulous and very hard-working person. What he did before he went anywhere, he did a color chart, and the color chart was all mixed. He did his all mixing, so he would mix, let's say, the red with the blue, but he would put the hues down and he would write how much he mixed for each one, and he would have pages and pages of all that. And it was useful, because every plant he had, he would write down, he would compare it immediately and write down the number of the hue that he needed. And that's why he was able, when he went back, to carry on. In fact, I do this, but in a much, much smaller scale, probably 1% to what he did. But that's what they did. They spent 5 weeks in Cyprus. They went around. John Seathorpe wasn't a tidy man, and he was really very loose with his writings. And of course, Ferdinand was getting very cross with him, because he was very obsessional, a very tidy man. When they went back to England, after 5 weeks, they deposited all the flora, went into the Oxford University, and the minerals went into Edinburgh University to be kept. And of course, as they were traveling around Cyprus, it is very nice to see that they've done a lot of watercolor paintings of little villages, or perhaps a shepherd, but really they have a good account of the places that they went to. So that was, these were some of the paintings that Ferdinand Bauer did, and you can see that he has given a very good account of the habit of the plant, and then of course some dissections, and that is how we paint today. No, it's more of that, isn't it? Yes. So these as well, these plants of course we studied today, and I compared this plant especially, and it looks really very good, absolutely very good. So they're good when you're painting a plant, when you're illustrating a plant, you have to take care to add as many stages of the life cycle. It's very important that he will put the flowers, and he'll put the, of course this is the fruit of the flower, and then of course he did some dissections to show what the petals are, the size of the petals, etc. And when necessary, the root. You probably noticed there that I do put some roots when I can. And this is it. Now we go to Cyprus. We come back to Cyprus straight away. This is, these are 2 people I'm going to talk about. This is Desmond Mickle. He's still alive today. He's in his 90s. I think he's 93. He's 93 years of age. He used to work for Kew, and he was a very important contributor to the botanical lab in Cyprus. He came in Cyprus in 1962, and of course he met Eleni Mcloughlin. I don't know if you heard of Eleni Mcloughlin. He was a lady from East Albanian descent, and she was married to the director of archaeological department. And of course, Miko met the family, and he was giving specimens to Electra to draw, and he would always see it and tell her the important parts to paint, and of course the information about the plant, which was very useful. Of course, at some time back, because I'm going to go back again, they together wrote. He did the writing, she did the painting, and then of course stamps were issued, which was a very nice event. But I met him twice, and of course here he is saying that he was very concerned about what was happening in Cyprus, about the tourism, about the destruction, about the very deep digging and losing the flora, and of course about people going in the fields or going out for a day and devastate the countryside because they used to dig up the plants. Indeed, people still do it now, and he was very concerned about it. But this is Miko came to Cyprus in 1962 from Kew to record all the flora of Cyprus as much as he could. By 1977, he wrote the volume 1 of Flora of Cyprus, 832 pages. I have both of his books, and I can tell you they are very descriptive, very, very thoroughly informative. And then, of course, he wrote the second one in 1985. So he stayed in Cyprus for many years. And these books are still used today. I still use them now. Of course, there are new additions to the plants that we discovered, but those books are really our Bible in the botanicals. So this is, of course, the book that he wrote with Eleni Mcloughlin. This is what it looked like. This is the cover, and this is the invitation to Miko to talk about it. So there it is. Some of her works. She came, as I said, in Cyprus in 1936. She married the director of the Department of Antiquities, Peter Magall, and then when she met Miko, she painted more. You can see these paintings were made into prints by Bank of Cyprus. You can still buy prints, I believe, from the Bank of Cyprus. There are 51 plants, and they're beautiful. So, any questions midway? Anything to ask? Anything you didn't understand? No? Okay. Early personal work. Now this is me, and of course I'm not quite sure if you should be seeing them, but still you are. Very fresh at Birmingham University, studying that. The very first course of botanical illustration in the university. And of course we had an awful lot of work to do in sketchbooks. Sketchbooks were the most important thing when we were studying, and I still have quite a lot of sketchbooks. I brought a little one with me today, if you want to see what happens to the sketchbooks. Obviously, another one there. That is very common to do an illustration in color, and you do some pencil work, and you do some line drawing as well, and get it all together. And it gives you an idea what the plant is going to look like. Botanical illustration, I don't know what you understand by it, but it is the art of depicting the plant life cycle. So the life cycle is extremely important if you can do it. The form and the necessary important details that are diagnostic features of each plant species. Now, my job is when I illustrate a plant, I have to read about it first, obviously from Mikkel's book, and learn what makes that plant different to other plants. What makes it different? So that is really my job. I have to really study it, look at it, feel it in my hands, because people think that we work from photographs. It's not really easy to work from photographs because you can't turn it around, you can't touch it. Because if you touch it, you may find that there are glands, there are prickles on them, there are all sorts of things on the plants that you have to know how it feels. The leaves may have little thorns underneath them. Are they rough, are they smooth, what is the color, what they smell like? You have to understand it. And once I understand the plant, I can just carry on. The requirements are, of course, is the knowledge and understanding of plant morphology. That's very, very important. I have to do that. I can't just change parts of the plants because I think it's a good idea, it will look nicer. So the plant morphology is the understanding is very, very important. The ability to read and research plant from specialist botanical publications. To be able to read, to be able to understand. And to understand something, you have to really touch it, look at it, compare it as well. I will never illustrate a plant and I have to have more than one specimen to compare it. Because if I take a plant and just it happens to have something wrong with it, and I haven't compared it with anything else, that really will mean disaster. One day around the forestry saying, why this cyclamen cyprium has 6 petals? I thought it had 5 petals. And I was told, yes, Eleni, go and find another one with 5 because the 6 is wrong. So this is it, you see. You have to really read. And when you find something different, well, you have to discard that. In case I think I discovered something new. It wasn't new at all. So the observation, as I said, and documenting. So when I pick a plant, I have to make as many notes as I can. Quite often, you will see in my sketchbooks that I even put a piece of a plant, a piece of anything really, which is really extremely important, and accurately produce the illustration, you see, to scale and correct color. A lot of illustrators will only use pen and ink, either in black or sepia, mostly in black, and color. I put color on mine because I was asked by the forestry department to put color so people can understand them more, they're more interesting. Or people will find them pretty, I suppose, and they will look at the plant. The plant details usually include the size, the shape of the flowers. A flower that grows in one area could be different to another area, the size could be different, and so on. And the numbers of petals, sepals, tepals. And that is very important too, because like a tulip will always have 6 tepals, it will never have less, it will never have more. Some daisies will have quite a lot, multiplied by 5, it will be there. Iris will always have every part in 3, so I'm looking for 3 stamens, everything is got to be 3. If I put more, it's wrong. An ordinary person wouldn't actually know. So if I know what is good for me, that is what I'm going to do. Because all these factors are very, very necessary for identification. To identify a plant, I have to put exactly what I see, exactly what I know, and exactly what is correct. Right. That's right. This again is, I was doing a project that everything I did, I remember that was for an exam, everything had to be edible. So you can see these rose hips. This is my sketchbook. and colors that I was mixing. I think this is watercolor, very unusual for me, and that. Because with rose hips, you can make cough mixtures, you can cut it, dry it, put it in oil, and that is the most beautiful oil for your face, and you can do a lot with them. So these are the rose hips that I did. They're obviously different types. Figs. Now you may notice, I was in Cyprus when I was doing that, I'm sure, but you may notice that we have a lot of the work we do doesn't have any shadows at the bottom. So yes, they may look as though they're floating, but that's most of their work, how it's done. Some people will just not resist the temptation and put some shadows, but I wasn't allowed to, so that's how it is. Of course, an onion, there it is, and every plant has a story for me. Because I went to Sainsbury's asking, I was looking through this big pile of onions, and of course they did fall. And of course the attendant came and asked me what I was looking for. Madam, don't you like our onions? Yes, I do. I want this onion because I'm going to draw it. It must have a stalk, it must have this, and it must have that. And he did find it for me. And of course, a collection of people was around looking at all this kerfuffle, what it was all about. But yes, we used to causing kerfuffle. So that was my red onion. And of course, I put a little bit of shadow, just a little bit there. And of course, peaches and cherries. And every time I look at it, I'm tempted to put some highlights on or some more shadows. And my dear husband says, don't you dare touch it. So I just have it hidden away all the time. Yes, you can eat that as well. This is Viola tricolor, spelled C-O-L-O-R, is the American way. It irritates me, but that's how it is. I tried to change it, and I was told by Bambos, no, that is the name. That's right. And of course, it's tricolor because you can see we have different colors. There's probably more than 3, but that's what it is. All parts of this plant you can eat, and you can again steep them in oil, and that makes another beautiful face oil, but that is therapeutic as well. So it's very good. And of course that, I'm sure you all know that. And that was really very, very bold and very cheeky. I enjoy doing that, yes. It's Adia or artichoke. It's not lovely. Yes, I like that. So now I moved to Sheffield University. That was more or less more serious kind of work, different work. And you can see that I had to work on a tulip. I had to do a dissection. So this is the plant habit. A tepal, it's not a petal and sepals. When a plant has no, you know that green bit underneath the rose, you know, that is a sepal. And then you find the petals. But if you have neither, if you don't have that, then the flower is we call them tepals really. But all these, the tepals, sepals, and the flowers, they are all modified leaves. And their purpose is not for beauty, but is to protect the reproductive parts of the plant. That's what they are there for. They are not for us, actually, at all. And here I put, this is the gynoecium, comes from the word of unic, which is Greek. The gynoecium is the female part of the plant, and that's where we're going to have all the seeds. And then here you are, I cut the plant at length like that. It's called long section. And then to show how the seeds are arranged inside. Because the seeds are not always arranged the same way inside. And then, of course, this is the stamen. Am I getting it right? This is the stamen. That is the male part. And, of course, the stamen consists of 2 parts. This is the anther, and this is the filament. I don't know whoever named it, because they gave the male parts very feminine names. Don't you think so? Filament and anther. They must have done it on purpose. Good for them.
They're for the male.
Pardon?
They are for the male.
Yes, the male. Filament. This is the filament here. Yes. And this is the anther. And of course, this is the male part. Yes. And here I show that it's ready to dehisce, to push out the pollen. The pollen is what will go onto the female part, and it will really go up. There's a little tube down there, it will go down there, and then it will pollinate it, and then you're going to get the seeds, and then etc., etc. It's very important to do a section, and here you can see I dissected this, I cut this lengthwise, trans section. I cut it there to show how many chambers there are and how the seeds are arranged. Obviously, not important for many people, but some people will think it's important, and that's what I absolutely love doing. And then, of course, it's the plant, a young plant there with the bulb. And of course, this here is a storage organ, and that is very important to illustrate, like the onion or whatever. You have to illustrate the outer just to show which way the direction goes. In here, in the tulip, you can see that my lines go upwards. So the outer layer of, if you think of an onion, the outer layer, that's very important to illustrate that as well. So that's enough of that. This is Arasimum vulgare. I found this in Brodaras division. No, this is in Brodaras. It was, and look at this. It's so different from the tulip under here, and of course this is a creeping one. It will creep itself, and another one here, and another one here. It's a member of the arum family. If you have it in the house at night, you go downstairs and you smell and you think, oh, is something rotten here? It's really rotten, and the reason is the pollinator for that are flies. You know, the blue flies, so of course it's attracting the flies. This is an exercise, of course, that I do in, this is an ash, a piece of ash. I was learning how to do pen and ink, and you have to be very careful how to do it. And then, of course, doing pen and ink is how to depict these little buds here that they are darker. Boring things as I brought this piece of work because this is, I have the same twig in stippling and in other methods as well to see what it goes. So if I do pen and ink and I'm not sure which method to use, I will do different types of methods. I will do stippling, I'll do lines or cross-hatching, and to see which one looks better. Because by putting the wrong lines or stippling or whatever, then I can show things that I don't want to show. It may look as though it has hairs on it if I mix them too much. And then I have this one with me as well. And don't you know, do you know what that is? Please tell me. No? No? Pardon? Yes, it is, that's right, yes. Fennel, that's right, yes. I had a good time doing that. I'm glad you recognized it because I would be very upset if you didn't. Yes. Any questions and a coffee break? Any questions?
What if you cannot find the plant that you want to illustrate? What if the plant that you want to illustrate is in Japan and you can search and you can know by any chance?
What if I cannot find it?
Yeah.
Well, I will have to go to the forestry department and they will tell me or give it to me because that is the only way to do it, yes. Some
so
plants...
there's always a way to find it.
If it exists, if it hasn't been destroyed completely, because some of the plants I have done, I don't know where they were, because they are either in a very dangerous place for me to go, or they are nearly extinct, meaning that very few, so the forestry department will bring it to me. So it's always a way, but if it's extinct, then of course there's nothing I can do. Some of the plants that I illustrate, I'm not allowed to say where I got them from, because there are only a handful of them. And sometimes I don't even want to know myself, because I don't. I had an email from Greece once by one of the professors, and was asking me, she saw my work in Edinburgh when I had exhibition, and she wrote to me and she wanted to know where I found Tulipa cypria, because she was honest enough to say her friends were coming just to look at it. And I just didn't answer the email because I'm not allowed to say it because there's not many of them. So I didn't know which way to go. This lady professor I met, she was very nice indeed, but at the same time I didn't know her friends, and I was told not to, so I didn't. Yes, we have to protect our flora, and some of them, and of course we've got dangers. We've got goats that go around and they munch everything they see them. You have people who they hunters, they go shooting and they walk. And of course, if they're walking for something, all their great big boots, you don't know where they stand, they don't know what they do. And indeed, I find in many places I go empty cartridges, which is really no excuse. I find so many things, and it makes you want to cry if you care, really. So, I don't know if I answered your question, but you will. That herbarium, people from herbarium will tell you. They may provide you if they haven't got it in fresh, they will provide you perhaps with a dried specimen, because a lot of my work is done from dried specimens, believe it or not. We learn how to use dried specimens. We rehydrate them, so you'll be able to do it. Yes. Anybody else? Any?
So you can rehydrate the plant after it.
Yes, mainly the reproductive parts, because the rest of it is there, is flat, is dry. So it's not really 3D, but with photographs I've taken before, because I have my sketchbooks and the colours I've taken before, what I really need to do is to rehydrate the flower that I'm going to dissect. So what I will do is to either put it in boiling water for a few minutes or in water into the microwave. That's very useful too, for 30 seconds. Saying that, in Australia, I met one of the illustrators that he has to do work from the dried specimens always. So you just try to do a 3D kind of thing. Yes. Yes.
And do you think that would protect our plants?
Pardon?
Do you think we don't protect our plants in Cyprus now? Should there be like a Kew Gardens, a separate version?
We have, they're growing, amiantos. Have you been to amiantos, anybody?
Yeah.
Yes? Have you been to the botanic garden there?
Yes.
There is a botanic garden. If you go from Nicosia to amiantos, Pano amiantos, because it's a down up. When you go into amiantos, you go up there. It's right on a bend on the left, and it's Levendi's Foundation. It opened on the 10th of May, 2010. That's when it opened. It's beautiful, and what they're trying to do is to bring as many endemic flora from the same kind of area, because plants will not grow where they don't want to grow. And I really think you should go. There is a little office there which you can visit, but 2 o'clock I think is the time that they go home. But the gardens are open all the time, every day. So when you see a bar going across, there is space for people to walk through, and you can go there. Absolutely, yes. It's really nice, and it's so well looked after. It's beautiful. And we have one on Trudor's. You know the square, Tudor Square, is right below it. There is a path, or you go where the toilets are, there opposite the toilets, there is an entrance, and that's an environmental center. And they have a little garden, but of course they show more the minerals and stones and a few plants. And then we have one in Athalassa. And Athalassa is beautiful too, if you go. And now they're opening one in Cabo Greco. Yes, and some of my illustrations are in all of them. The ones in Amiendos, we don't go to that. I'm not happy because they've cut all my dissections off, and not to my liking, but anyway, they're there. So, anybody else, please? Yes?
I would like to learn what's the sensitivity and the process.
The blue makers.